So let's design a project. And Bronwyn talked about wanting to do curvy lines. So here's my little drawing. You can draw anything you like, but you want one curvy line, like the stem of my flower, and then a couple of leaves or petals. And we're going to put some dots in the middle of that flower, some French knots. And you can draw it with anything, whatever you've got there, a pencil. Ultimately, if you were doing this to be a really finished piece, you would do it with something that's going to wash out. Pencil is fine, chalk is fine. There are lots and lots of fabric markers that you can get. Some will wash out and so forth. I did mine with a big fat permanent marker so that you could see it really well, but obviously that's a bad choice if it's for real. So when you're ready, show me your beautiful designs.
I actually have a hoop. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty light. I did it in pencil.
Good. So this is the handout that I had sent you last night, and it's for your reference. We don't have to look at the details on this because I'm going to show you more as we go forward, but I wanted you to have that for reference. So the first thing I want to do with you is this outline stitch, and we're going to do the stem, the curvy stem or whatever curvy line you have in your design. And the big thing that you need to learn about it is that your needle should always come up on the inside of the curve. And you see how I've got the thread is trailing to the opposite side of it. So when the needle comes up, it's going to hold the thread to the right of the needle, to the other side of the needle. Do you see what I'm saying? So the thread is on the right, and the needle comes up on the left. And so when I bring that thread up, it's going to hold the thread out to the outside of the curve. So when you can see that my curve is changing directions. So the first part of this curve, I'm going from the bottom to the top. The first part of the curve is the inside of the curve is on the left. And then as we go up, now the inside of the curve is on the right. So I'm going to actually change the way that needle configures in order to keep my line going that way.
I drew a picture of a flower. Can you see it?
Show me again.
There's a flower.
Perfect.
Does it look like it?
Looks great. Looks great.
Not a very sexy curve, but I didn't want to make it look like an S.
Okay. Bronwyn, show me yours again. You said it's not working.
Well, I pulled it out because it didn't look right. So I go like this. Do I go up and down or up this way? This way or this way?
Well, I can't see your work. So let's go back to the slide here for a second. Let me get myself. Let's look at this. And there's a little sketch on the left. This one. Let's look at this. You see how they have this dotted line? That's where we want to go. And what they've done is to draw it such that you can see the size of this stitch. So they've gone down and up and carry the thread to the outside of the curve. And the needle comes up on the inside of the curve, and that will hold that thread where you want it to be.
Yeah, I think I got it now. You could see this.
Good, good. All right, so then once you've got your stem done, then we'll turn it to the back side. And every time I go to the back side of my work, I put my picture upside down so you can see we're on the back of the piece. And then I'm just going to carry this thread under some of my stitches. Just go back. It's sort of like back stitching. You carry under, carry under, carry under, and that's as good as a knot. And then you trim the thread. So the back of your work looks just as good as the front. I think I've told you before that when I would bring a piece of embroidery to my grandmother to show her, the first thing she did was turn it upside down. And so we'll be looking both at the front and at the back of this work as we go on. All right, How are we doing, like, gang? Are you getting there?
I can show you. I don't know if
Okay.
you can see it.
Hold it steady. Back up a little bit. Looking good. Okay. But notice that, put it up one more time. Put it
Yeah,
up.
it's hard when you change the curve.
Exactly.
It's hard when you change the curve.
Right.
It's a
Because-
little bumpy.
And your needle comes up on the inside of the curve. There were some places there, it was the
Oh,
opposite.
here we go. This is
You
on the
see that?
outside of the curve.
Yeah,
There, now it's better.
but you see what happens. If you come up on the wrong side of the curve, then
Yeah.
your line's gonna look bumpier.
Right.
It'll be much smoother if you use that up stitch to guide the curve.
Inside of the curve. Boy, my great grandmother was so great at this. She could just zoom along.
Well,
And-
yeah,
All our grandmothers were like that.
you'll get there too, but it takes practice. What'd you say, Claire?
I said all our grandmothers were like that. They mostly did all kinds of stitching, embroidery, crocheting, knitting. I'm a
That's
cook.
right. But don't forget that all of our grandmothers had been doing it since they were 12,
That's right.
right?
And they
Because
didn't have TV.
a writer, that's
Joy,
right.
They used to wait at night to have the sewing circle. They'd put the kids to bed and they'd all, like the whole neighborhood of the women would get together and they have a sewing circle.
Right. Or they do that in the middle of the day too, because the light was better. I remember my great grandmother had a big bay window in her bedroom, and she would have the ladies over and they would sit in that bay window where the light was the best and do their sewing then.
Yeah, the daylight is definitely better for sewing.
Well, and especially before electric lights were as good as they are today. But now, I mean, sewing by electric light is fine. But in the 1890s, it was not that way. You had to depend on sunlight. And if you've ever seen a reflector behind a candle with a sort of metal reflector behind it,
Yeah.
that would intensify the candlelight. Because sewing by candlelight is hard on your eyes. Are we ready for the next stitch? How are we doing?
Yeah, I've got my curve up to the flower.
Super. All right. So carry your thread to the back of the work.
There we go.
All right. And now look on the back. And you're going to slide your needle under that line 2-3 times to secure the end so that you don't have to make a knot. You want to try
All
to
right.
keep it nice and smooth. And so when you've got your thread secure, just snip it off and we'll go on to the next bit.
Okay.
Great.
And the back is nice and neat too. That's
Great.
the back.
Super. All right, so the next is what's called the lazy daisy stitch. And you can make these large or small. You can make tiny little rosebuds or whatever you want. But this is one of the more common ones. It's one that I like a lot. So I'm going to start with the leaf on mine. Find some structure that looks more or less like that. And so you start by coming up at the base of the leaf and then go down. You go through that same hole or close to it and go all the way to the tip of the leaf or petal that you're working with. So I went down in the base and up at the tip of the leaf. And then you carry the thread around it. So you can see how it's looped around those 2 points from the base to the tip. And here's the thread going around it. And then we'll go down to secure the tip.
Isn't that the same as the chain stitch?
Yes, it is. You could just carry on and make a whole line of those. Yes.
Okay.
Then you go back down to the bottom of the next one.
Correct. So from the tip of one, you go to the bottom of the next petal.
Hey, that looks not too bad.
And then because those are fairly large, what I did on mine was I filled it. I filled it up. So here, let me show you. So then I used a back stitch or an outline stitch, either one. I think I used the outline stitch in mine, so they sort of overlap a little bit. A back stitch is where they look like a bunch of sort of dashes, but they're connected. Yeah. Okay. Whereas the outline stitch that we did first for the stem would do that overlap. So here I have it looking a little bit twisted on the inside, but something to fill up that circle because it was kind of open, big and open.
Okay.
So you could do a variety of things. You could make small little lines all going from the center so that it looks more sort of triangular. Anything that you like. That's one nice thing about embroidery. This is a creative art. It's sort of like paint by numbers. You know? You make the design and you fill it in. So it's supposed to be creative. So feel free to let yourself be creative.
One is done.
All right, show us. Looking good.
You learned fast.
Let's see, how did I do that again? I can't remember what I did. Oh,
Up at the base. Up at the base.
And then back to the base.
Then flow your yarn around in a circle. So you've got it laying on your work in a circle. And then go down through that same hole even at the base and up at the tip.
Oh, okay, wait a second. I forgot what I did before.
Use the picture again. So we came up at the base, then down through that same hole in the base and up at the tip. Okay.
I need to get some embroidery needles. This is too hard with a regular needle.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see why having the right tools makes a big difference.
I was hoping I had some, but I have this embroidery needle, but this one is I guess for crewel work. I don't know if you can see it. It's like, it's very huge.
Show me.
And
is that the one that's so long?
no, this one is a short one. This is a short one, and then this is the long one. It's really long. And this is shorter.
Maybe
So
that's
They've got a big hole.
All right. So do one thing for me. Take the tip of that needle and just kind of prick your hand a little bit and tell me, is it sharp or is it blunt?
It's pretty blunt. These I think are for crewel.
That's a tapestry needle. That's called a tapestry needle. And you would use that if you're working on needlepoint canvas or something that already has holes in it, that you're not trying to pierce the cloth. You just want to travel through the existing hole without piercing the fabric.
I think I was using it to do darning on a rug.
Yeah.
Or in a rug.
Joyce, do you use that kind of needle when you're making a rug?
Possibly, yeah, because again, the backing fabric for the rug has already been pierced. It has holes in it. So you'll use it that way. There are many different ways of making a rug, but a tapestry needle is blunt because the hole already exists and you just want to travel through the existing hole. Okay, the sharps are when you're trying to pierce the fabric and make a hole.
So do I come up from the bottom?
Yes, you're at the bottom of the petal. That's good. Now your needle is going to go back through that same hole and come up.
The same hole. Okay, hold on a second.
Up, and it'll come up at the tip of the petal.
Right. Okay. So you make a loop.
You made a loop. So before you draw it through, when it's just sticking out, then make sure that your thread is made a loop between those 2 points.
Okay, it really needs to be through the same hole. If you see that one wasn't through the same hole and it's like a loop at the end, it's like a U at the end.
Yeah, but it looks good. Yeah, you can see you need to be in or very close to that same hole. Okay, and you can see on the one that I did, once I'm finished with a color, then I'm going to loop it on the back of the work. Just slide my needle underneath the finished work 2 or 3 times to secure it and then go on. So
Oh,
for
that
my
looks pretty.
for my flower, I did the same lazy daisy stitch for the petals. And from the top of the one petal, you go on to the base of the next petal. And then I filled my petals. In this case, I gave it a little bit more dimension by changing color. So I chose a complementary but contrasting color to fill it, just to give it more, you know, there's natural variation in flowers anyway, so you can get creative. And I'm finished with the color, so I'm sliding my needle under to fasten it, trim the thread. And you can see the back of the work is pretty neat. It's not as pretty as the front, but it's neat.